Joining me now, renowned Harvard Law School professor, attorney Alan Dershowitz. His book is Trumped Up: How Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. Professor, great pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Is it your sense that the Department of Justice, and to some extent the FBI, because they're in on this document production, either think that they are above the law and don't have to answer to it, or they're engaged in a cover-up of incriminating documents, or is it both?
Or it can be innocent as well. It could be, these are overwhelming numbers of documents.
The subpoena came out 7 months ago.
They have to go through them. The important point is to make sure they're applying neutral standards, that they're doing exactly the same when the Republicans are seeking documents as they would be doing if Democrats were seeking documents. If there's any suspicion that they are holding back on partisan grounds, that's what destroys the credibility of our Justice Department. And the Justice Department is in real trouble today because the American public doesn't trust our justice system. They think it's partisan.
Right. We found out a couple of days ago that there wasn't just one order in the appointment of Robert Mueller as special counsel, but two of them. The first one was for public consumption, and it was vague and ambiguous. The second one was secret and private between Mueller and Rosenstein. But neither one of them state a crime as the special counsel regulation demands.
Well, what I was most concerned about is the second one talks about collusive activities and collusion in violation of federal law. Where's the statute? You know, in 1815, the United States Supreme Court rendered one of the most important decisions ever rendered about criminal law, saying in America we do not have a common law of crime. You must have a statute.
Right.
So I challenge Special Counsel Mueller, show us the statute. Do not allow any investigation of anybody unless you can point to a specific violation of the federal criminal statutory law. Otherwise, you're just looking for political sin, and that's not the job of a prosecutor.
This is actually, in truth, an investigation in search of a crime, and the special counsel law requires just the opposite.
Not only that, but special counsel, we're the only Western democracy that uses special counsel. Whenever you have a special counsel, they're always searching for crime. Imagine if they spend all that money and come back and say, whoops, no crime. We didn't find any crime. Normally, you'd celebrate if you haven't found crime.
Right.
But if you're a special counsel, you have been a failure if you haven't found the crime.
Right. Here's the money question. If Rosenstein, in his two orders, didn't comply with the special counsel regulation, doesn't that make Mueller's appointment invalid?
Well, the original appointment of a special counsel seems to have satisfied the technical requirements of law. The problem I have is Rosenstein making the appointment, because Rosenstein is himself not only a witness, but the key witness. If there's any obstruction of justice charges relating to the firing of Comey, who's the guy who wrote the memo? Who is the first witness you call?
He's got a conflict of interest that's disqualifying, isn't it?
It is disqualifying in my view. Other legal ethicists disagree, but I can't imagine how you can both prosecute and be a witness in the same case at the same time. That seems like a paradigmatic conflict of interest.
You know, Mueller wants to interview the president, arguably over his motive or intent in firing Comey. The president has constitutional powers to do it for a reason or no reason at all.
Not only that, I think he has the constitutional authority to refuse to answer that question.
What should he say?
He could say, I am the President of the United States. I acted within Article. I'm not giving him advice. I'm just saying what a president could say. I acted within my authority. You have no right to question my actions. Just like the Constitution says you can't question a senator for his vote. You can't question a judge for his or her vote. You can't question a president and ask why. If you could ask a president why he sent troops, his truthful answer might be, hey, I'm hoping to get a big book contract when I finish my presidency. Ooh, those speeches that I'm going to give. Wow, I want to go down in history as a great president. You can't start probing presidential motives. There's no end. Everybody has multiple motives.
Sure. What if Mueller says, oh, I want to ask you about collusion? But the president apparently has no knowledge of collusion. That doesn't make him a witness to anything. So on that basis, does Mueller have the ability to question him about collusion?
Well, I would make a different argument. I think that collusion not being a crime is not within the jurisdiction of the special counsel. The special counsel is a prosecutor. He doesn't have a roving commission to look for political sins. He can only look for federal crimes, and I don't think he can question somebody about something that won't lead to criminal investigation or criminal prosecution.
Alan Dershowitz, a Harvard law professor, his book is called Trumped Up. And thank you so much for dropping by.
Thank you.
New fallout tonight from today's heated hearing on the Hill. That was a small piece of it. Lawmakers grilled Inspector General Michael Horowitz on why FBI agent Peter Strzok's anti-Trump bias was not found to be an influence on the Clinton email investigation. And tonight, Strzok is responding, saying those lawmakers are actually the ones who are biased. A short time ago, his lawyer releasing a statement saying in part, quote, all of this seriously calls into question the impartiality of the disciplinary process, which now appears tainted by political influence. Instead of publicly calling for a long-serving FBI agent to be summarily fired, politicians should allow the disciplinary process to play out free from political pressure. Here now exclusively, Congressman Bob Goodlatte and Trey Gowdy, who chaired the two committees that questioned the IG Horowitz today. Thank you to both of you and for your time tonight. Congressman Gowdy, I'll start with you first. I know that that is the first you're hearing of Peter Strzok's attorney and that letter responding today.
I hope he says that when he comes before Congress. I hope that is his defense, that he's a victim. This is the same guy that said his fellow citizens, he could smell them if they were Trump supporters. This is the same guy that said the election should be $100 million to nothing. This is the same guy who sleptwalked through the Hillary Clinton investigation, but then woke up and got real excited at the prospect of ending the Trump campaign or ending the Trump presidency. I hope to goodness that he comes to Congress and next week, and that's his defense.
Congressman Goodlatte, it's a pretty unbelievable statement that says he is the target of unfounded personal attacks, political games, and inappropriate information leaks.
There is absolutely no question that all across our two committees, members on both sides of the aisle acknowledged how appalled they were by the statements that he made, and many acknowledged that making those statements using government offices and government equipment is highly inappropriate, and it clearly reflected upon the distinction between these two investigations where his bias shows through clear and clear. But in any event, I agree with Trey. We want to have him before the committee. He has now indicated that he would come voluntarily, but he has not pinned himself down on when. So we are imminently going to issue a subpoena to him to appear next week.
Okay, so the subpoena's been prepared. It has not been issued yet.
It is ready to go.
On the way. Okay, so we should expect to see Peter Strzok testify publicly next week?
We're still open to working with him, but he needs to understand that he has to do it on our timetable, not on his. So if he's going to appear voluntarily, his lawyer better contact us right away because the subpoena is coming.
Well, I think he'll hear that message loud and clear. And Chairman Gowdy, you talked a lot about the timeline of those text messages today. And then the big news that the IG is now confirming that they're looking into whether or not this FBI agent and his bias, whether it impacted the launch of the Russia investigation. That is a big question. Did it?
Well, it's the seminal question. If you look at the chronology, of course, in late July of 2016 is when the Russia probe began. And you're not 2 weeks into it before Peter Strzok is saying, we'll stop it, with the it being the presidency. We're not 2 weeks into it before he's talking about an insurance policy to make sure Donald Trump is never the president. So keep in mind, he's 2 weeks into an investigation, and he's already talking about impeaching the target of his investigation. They hadn't done anything at that point. I mean, 2 weeks, the paperwork's not even processed, but yet he's already reached his conclusion on what the outcome of that investigation is. Fast forward to when he's put on the Mueller probe, and he's talking about how important this is and how momentous it is, and he's got to fix and finish what he started with the Hillary Clinton investigation. I have never, in 20 years being a prosecutor, seen a law enforcement agent with this amount of animus and bias towards a target, and I hope and pray he comes next week and portrays himself as a victim.
I think a lot of people at this point, based on that setup, are going to want to see that as well. But Chairman Goodlatte, as far as now the IG confirming that they're looking into Peter Strzok, those text messages, his role in the launch of this Russia probe, what more, after those hearings wrapping up today, what more do you want to know?
Well, there's a lot of things that the Inspector General was not tasked with looking at, but he also, let's just note that same Peter Strzok was deeply involved, the lead investigator in the Hillary Clinton email investigation, and at the same time he was making the statements that Trey just referred to. He was also helping a process that bent over backwards to not follow proper investigative procedures with regard to former Secretary of State and then presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. That is a shocking contrast that should never be allowed again to occur in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And so we have to continue to pursue that to make sure that the 2020 presidential election or any other future investigation is not tainted by this kind of bias and not tainted by the inappropriate procedures.
Happy with the way things went today, Chairman?
I thought it was a very good hearing, and I think that many people were today on both sides of the aisle acknowledging that the decision that was made by President Trump, some of them didn't use his name, as recommended to by Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein to fire James Comey, was the correct decision.
Chairman Goodlatte and Gowdy, I know it was a really busy day for you, a busy day in Washington, and thanks for coming on the program tonight. We appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.